Pleasant morning, good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Kami yung group 2, breakout room, and assigned topics for us are interview in second quarter module 1 and a few in second quarter of module 2. So, ano nga ba yung first topic natin is interview. Ano nga ba yung interview? So, interview is in order for us to gather data, syempre, meron tayong way, 'di ba? Hindi naman para makapagkuha ng information basta lang na tanong. So, it can be a form of an interview or observation. Remember lang na magkaiba silang dalawa. Observation can be done without asking question. Basically, parang ino-observe mo lang yung taong yon. While interview, syempre tinatanong mo na siya and you're getting information dahil tinatanong mo siya. Unlike sa observation na nag-o-observe ka lang. Pero tapos, meron din mga types ng interview. There are four types: structured, semi-structured, informal, and retrospective. So, yung first is structured and semi-structured. So, basically, parang self-explanatory naman na. Parang structured ay, ang mga question ay handa and specific sila. Usually, ginagamit sa quantitative research. So, kapag structured ay pang quantitative research. And pag semi-structured naman is qualitative research. So, why? Kasi nga, the question mostly asked in this type of interview ay mga open-ended questions. And since semi-structured sila, you can still have an impromptu follow-up questions pag nag-interview ka na. So, sa informal naman ay parang interview na nagkukwentuhan lang kapag wala kang prepared na questions. Obviously, ang disadvantage nito ay yung walang na-prepare yung interviewer na questions. For example, ang topic nyo dapat is about mental health, tapos biglang napunta kayo sa government. So, parang ang layo bigla nung magiging interview nyo. Tapos, ang purpose naman ng informal interview is to know kung paano ba mag-act ang mga participants in certain situations. Next naman is retrospective interview. Ang ang purpose mo is for the participants to recall something or ikwento ang past experience nila dun sa research mo na yon. Then, kapag naman nag-i-interview tayo, meron din mga interview questions. We have 6 types. So, first is background questions. So, yung background question is mostly nag-uumpisa siya sa what, when, where, and how, and why. So, for example, when did you wake up this morning? So, yun yung then pwede ring, where did you go to school when you were on elementary? So, yung background question is basically naghahanap ng background nung ini-interview. So, knowledge questions naman is yun yung kumukuha ka ng factual informations dun sa ini-interview mo. So, tapos nun, experience questions naman, syempre, self-explanatory naman na yun. So, based dun sa experience ng ini-interview mo. So, opinion questions naman is parang tinatanong mo yung opinion ng isang tao or nung ini-interview mo, in this case, about dun sa certain topic na tinatanong mo. So, feeling questions naman is kung yung mga questions na nag-a-address ng feelings or ang feelings nararamdaman ng ini-interview mo while doing that interview. So, last is sensory questions wherein nagtatanong ka about dun sa 5 senses ng isang tao. So, basically, parang parang tinatanong mo, basta yung sa sensory question is 5 senses ng isang tao, pero dapat connected pa rin siya sa topic. So, yun lang yung sa ko, and ipapasa ko na to kay Marl.
So, the research local. So, the research local defines your study's environment or location, the place. So for example, if you will be conducting the research in a school, your research locale would be the name of the school campus, FEU Roosevelt Rodriguez. It will outline and discuss the history and background of the location. However, because of the pandemic and because we are in online learning, you cannot physically visit the school campus. If the respondents are students from FEU Roosevelt Rodriguez, then you would need to put FEU Roosevelt Rodriguez as the research locale. So this is important, so keep this in mind. The specific description of the setting is critical in qualitative research because the setting or context may have an influence or impact on the respondent's behavior. So, how do you present the research locale or the setting of the study? It's very simple and straightforward. Since the research locale is only one, you will just need to introduce that the study will be conducted in FEU Roosevelt Rodriguez, and you will go straight to the background and history of the school. So lastly, after you finish the history and background of the setting, the next step will be to show a map of the FEU, of the location of the FEU Roosevelt Rodriguez. So you can take this simply from Google Maps or any other apps that show the location of the school. So that's about it for the research locale.
The research design is the section that describes the specific approach the research will be using. These approaches could be ethnography, case study, historical, phenomenological, and the like. The approach you would be do in the research will depend on the purpose of the study and the set of specific questions that you would formulate. The approach you would take must be introduced and explained later on, and explain why this approach was used. Next page. Uh, the graphical design. The ethnographical approach is to interact and observe people in their own environment, so that the methods of approach you would be using is like face to face on the interview of your participants. Uh, Next method. Case study. Case study is a research approach that uses general and in-depth multi-phased understanding of a complex issue in a real-life context. Yeah, next. And historical design. Historical design is to analyze past events and develop the present concepts and conclusions. And next. Alright. The purpose of the research design is that to enable the researcher to proceed in the right direction without any deviation from the task. It is the overall detailed strategy of the research process. The design of experiments is very important as the aspect of the research study. A poor research design may lead to the collapse of the entire research project in terms of time and effort. And also for research design, the importance of it is formulating the design helps the researcher to create correct decisions in every step of the study. It also helps identify major and minor tasks of the study. It also makes the researcher study effective and interesting by providing minute detail in each step of the process. A good researcher also helps design helps the researcher to complete the objective of the study in a given time and facilities and the best solution for the research problems. And lastly, it helps the researcher complete all the tasks even with the limit of resources in a better way. That is all. Excellent.
Sample or the respondents. So, sample of the respondents. This section describes the respondents of the study. The description may include the demographic profile of the respondents, such as age, educational background, occupation, and other information that may be relevant in understanding the behavior of the respondents. So this is the part where we give relevant and detailed information about the participants. Participants have the ability to determine if they wish to participate in a study and for how long. Also, sample is another term for participants. It is said that respondents are crucial to the research industry. Ultimately, the responses they provide generate the data needed for the research study. For example, your research is about school, then obviously your participants are students and school staff lang. Another example is if your research is about fishing, or like the best way to catch fish. So yung mga participants will be fishermen and sailors. Obviously, you can be more specific on which qualities you want people to have. For example, in your research about school, gusto mo lang na teenagers from age of 13 to 18. Eh di nasa yun na yun. Tapos for example, ang research mo is about weight. Eh di syempre, you're going to need to ask all of your participants' weights kasi it's relevant to your study. Next, please. Here are some examples. Example number 1. The title they used is subject of the study, and hindi siya gano'n ka-detailed. They just mention what the jobs of the participants were. Example number 2. The title they used is description of the respondent. Just like example number 1, vague lang description nila and they only added what they needed for the study. Example number 3 naman, the last example naman, the title is respondents of the study and sampling procedure. Unlike the other two, mas detailed yung descriptions nila and they also listed the procedure they used for sampling. Next, please. So, what are some ways to find the right participants? Normally, you just ask around your group of friends and see who's willing. Now, let's say that maybe you conduct a survey instead. What would be the best ways to share the survey? Number 1 is to share your survey on social media. This method has benefits and some downsides, but is a fast organic way of creating survey samples at scale. Assisted crowdsourcing uses social media to target based on quota sampling criteria and creates a sample from respondents. Because Facebook is an organic environment, people go there for the community aspect. However, this method is not without flaws. You will most likely get respondents who already have a great deal of familiarity with the topic your survey covers, so they are likely to be biased rather than an impartial source of data. Lastly is the on-site intercept survey. A simple way to obtain survey feedback is to go right at the source and talk to customers directly through on-site intercept surveys. Although this is a more costly option, it is also one of the most insightful methodologies. Intercept surveys allow a company to collect feedback live and in the moment. With this research tool, analysts have access to gather opinions from customers or visitors right after their experience. Additionally, because this is completed in person, responses rates will be higher. And that's all for sample and or respondents. And that's all for the presentation of Breakout Room 2. Thank you for listening.